Hey, it's the Fantasy Football Kids. Hope you love the episode. It's the Fantasy Football Kids. I'm Adrian.
I'm Edgar.
See ya.
Okay, so we're going to talk about our top 5 must-haves for fantasy team this season. I'll start off. I really like this season Christian Mccaffery, even over Jonathan Taylor. I think he should be the number 1 pick in your fantasy football league. I think that Christian Mccaffery, although he's had injuries in the past, injuries are very unpredictable, and the Panthers have a much better O-line. I think they have a better head coach, and they got backup, I think, Donta Foreman, and he's a very underrated backup. He's going to take a lot of the small down, power back workload off of Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey will have a healthier fantasy football season. Adrian?
Lamar Jackson. He's had back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons. He also, his weapons with Rashad Bateman to be better. He's goal to get better because he's a better thrower.
And also with Lamar, he's also, his team wasn't very healthy last season, and the Ravens have, I believe it's like, when Lamar is there, they have a good record, and when Lamar isn't there, like the times Lamar has been unhealthy, like injured, the Ravens have been overall 1-6. So Lamar is a key piece of that team. I also agree with Adrian. He's a very underrated quarterback. I think losing Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals is definitely a blow to Lamar, but I've seen a lot of training camp clips, and Rashad Bateman does look really good. All right, and then I'll head with my next guy. I think I really like Justin Jefferson this year. I think that Justin Jefferson will have an explosive season. I think he's going to go crazy this season. I think he'll hit like 1,800 yards around there. I think he'll be a wide receiver 1 overall. I'm willing to take him over Cooper Kupp in any fantasy draft. I like Cousins. I think he's a very underrated quarterback. I think he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. Dalvin Cook is going to have a better season this time, so there should be easier for Jefferson to get separation with the defenses anticipating that there could be a run play. And then Justin Jefferson overall, I really like him as a player. He's had a great first couple seasons, and I think he's going to keep improving on that, and he has a nice career.
Allen Lazard. He's the number 1 weapon in Green Bay. Top red zone hunter. Since Davante Adams isn't there, he's the number 1 receiver.
I agree with that. And also, Rodgers has this thing where he doesn't really throw to rookie receivers and receivers that are new. He kind of has to trust the receivers first. And I think that Lazard is the most trusted receiver. I think that Lazard is going to have a big season. I don't see who else is Rodgers going to throw to in Green Bay. I think Aaron Jones is going to get a lot of passing workload and A.J. Dillon. But other than that, Davante Adams' targets need to go somewhere, and they can't all go to Tony. So, all right, and I'll end off the list. I think that Kyle Pitts is a player that you must have. I think he's due for positive touchdown regression. He had 0 touchdowns last year, or 1, and they have a new quarterback. They have Mariota or Ritter. I think Mariota, he's going to be more of a ground threat, and they got London. Even though Mariota is going to be more of a ground threat and pass less, I think Pitts is going to be Mariota heavily targeted tight ends. He kept up with top tight ends in Tennessee, and I think that he'll continue to do that in Atlanta. And he throws like 40% of his passes to his tight end 1, which is a very large amount of targets. And I think Pitts is due for a very explosive season.
Yes, I agree with you. He had JaMarr Chase. He had a fantastic year last year and has potential to be the number 1 receiver in fantasy. I think.
Actually, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I have him as my number 5 wide receiver, just because T. Higgins is such a threat. I think that T. Higgins, he's very underrated. He did very well in the pass game the year that before JaMarr was in Cincinnati. And I think that he's going to have a nice year. All right, so our next must-have for fantasy, I just went off of Kyle Pitts, but I believe it's your turn to go.
Okay. Deebo Samuel. He's an amazing player, top 10 fantasy. He's like a running back and a wide receiver all in one. I think he's going to have a great year.
I disagree with you on that take because in Debo's contract it says that the 49ers have to pay him an extra like $3 or $4 million if they use another running back too much. I think that's going to limit his carries. That's going to limit his rushing production. And I also think Ayuk is going to be a factor. Debo was the only wide receiver really producing in that offense, and we don't know how Trey Lance is going to, but how Trey Lance running a lot is going to impact his fantasy points. I think Ayuk gets a bigger role in that offense, and I think that Debo gets not a small role, but he gets a smaller role, especially with the fact that he gets bonuses for having rushing yards and carries, and they would have just paid him the money up front without the bonuses if they didn't plan on not using that as running back. And then the last guy that we have, I think Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be an amazing quarterback this year. I think he has a ton of rushing upside. He just got A.J. Brown in that offense. A.J. Brown is a stud. He's had a few knee injuries, but that hasn't really held him back. He's top 10 in my fantasy wide receiver rankings. I think A.J. Brown is going to be an absolute stud this year. I think that the combination of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and I can't remember at the moment who their tight end is, but they have a great receiving core, and I think that it will truly take Hurts to the next level. No, Zach Ertz got traded for us. I think it'll take them to the next level for Hurts. I think that he's going to have a great fantasy year, and I think that he's going to have a lot of rushing. All right, we're going to take another commercial break. Thank you for staying with us. After we get back, we're going to be reviewing my top 5 at every position and my sleeper for every position.
Welcome back. Edgar's going to show us his top 5 and his sleeper. He's going to help win that trophy.
All right, so we're going to start off with wide receiver. My number 1 wide receiver is Justin Jefferson. And I've already said with the Minnesota offense, that is exciting, and the new coach who's going to be pass-oriented. Second, I have CeeDee Lamb. They just got rid of Amari Cooper. The other wide receiver is out for a while, and I think that CD is not going to have that much competition for targets, and I think in fantasy, volume is king. I think he's going to get a lot of that volume. Yeah. Third, I have Cooper Kupp. The only reason that I have him at number 3 instead of number 2 is that Stafford, there's been reports that he hurt his elbow, and that has affected Cooper Kupp in my rankings because he and Stafford kind of have this chemistry. And I think that if there's a different QB than Stafford, he'll still have a lot of production, but I don't think he will have the same production on big plays like he did with Stafford. Number 4, I have Stephon Diggs. Buffalo, the number 1 pass offense in the NFL last year, I believe. And I think that they're going to have another pass-heavy year. I think that they are in ultimate win-now mode. They just signed Von Miller. They're really going for it this year. They want to win it all. Number 5, I have JaMarr Chase. I only have him so low is because I think T. Higgins is going to do a lot this year. T. Higgins and JaMarr Chase's fantasy stats last year were basically the same.
I disagree with you.
If you remove JaMarr Chase's 4 of his big plays that ended in, he had 4 huge plays that ended in touchdowns. If you remove those, and you can't really count on big plays, then they basically have the same fantasy stats, and T. Higgins is so much cheaper than JaMarr Chase. I like T. Higgins over JaMarr Chase this year, but I feel like at cost, T. Higgins is over JaMarr Chase, but JaMarr Chase is the better receiver, and I think he is going to get more targets with that connection with Burrow. My sleeper for this year at the wide receiver position is Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, he's a really talented and young receiver in the Mahomes offense, which is, Mahomes has supported top receiver finishes and top tight end finishes in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I think that Mahomes, he's going to have a great year. I think that Juju Smith-Schuster will have great production this year. I think that he's going to kind of not replace per se, but take a lot of Tyreek Hill's vacated targets. And I think that Mahomes is going to support him to a top fantasy finish at the wide receiver position.
Edric, I agree with you. But I do think that JaMarr Chase is going to have a way better year than T. Higgins. Because last year, Joe Burrow was literally like targeting JaMarr Chase. Now let's hear about your 5 running backs.
All right, at number 1, I have Christian Mccaffery. That man is an absolute beast. So he's dealt with injuries, but if you can remember as far back as his rookie season, he was a monster that year. He won a lot of people's fantasy leagues. A lot of people are saying that the chalk pick for 101 is Jonathan Taylor, but you don't make money by taking the safe pick. You make or not money, but you win big by taking the risky bet. And I believe that by taking the risky bet with Christian Mccaffery, you're going to be winning. Number 2, I have Jonathan Taylor. He had an amazing season last year. I think that with Matt Ryan in there, it's going to be a bit less running in that offense. I think it's going to be more pass heavy. Carson Wentz was a big factor in its massive rushing total last year because Wentz crumpled under any form of pressure. And that caused more runs for Jonathan Taylor and more passing opportunities. So, number 3, I have Saquon Barkley. Also bouncing back from an injury. I think that the new New York kind of system, I think is going to benefit him a lot. I think that Daniel Jones and Kadarius Toney. Daniel Jones has a lot of pressure on him. If he doesn't do good this year, then he no longer has a job in New York. I think that's going to force him to be more safe with his passes. I think he's going to do better this year with the new coach. Daniel Jones is an amazing athlete. He has lots of potential, but he hasn't really unlocked it that yet. I think the new coach will help him do that. And there's a 4th-round pick who came to New York, Wan'Dale Robinson, who's impressing a lot of people at training camp. I think Kadarius Toney is also due for some touchdowns this year. So I think that the Giants are going to have a much lighter offense with Saquon, but Saquon is still going to make those big plays. Number 4, I have Austin Eckler. I feel like the Chargers are going to have a big season with Herbert as QB. I think that they make the playoffs this year. I think that Eckler is going to get a lot of targets in the end zone. And I think that it's going to be, I think Eckler's probably going to have a season close to what he had last year. Number 5, I have Najee Harris. Najee Harris last year, he basically carried Big Ben to his final football resting place. He was able to, he had a lot of rushes, a lot of receptions. I think that Najee's a workhorse. He put on 15 pounds this offseason so he can, become more of a workhorse back. I think he's going to have a lot of carries this season, and I think that he will do very well in this Pittsburgh offense with Trubisky, Pickett, or it sounds like Mason Rudolph might be the quarterback. And then as my sleeper for the running back position, I have James Cook. He's the younger brother of Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to be the running back 1 in Bills pass-heavy offense. They spent a 2nd-round pick on him, and they're going to want to use him because they spent that level of capital on him. I think that he's going to see a lot of passing workload from Josh Allen. I think that the Bills had the number 1 pass offense in the NFL. He's going to get a lot of targets. I think that he's going to have a very good year, and he's going to outperform his average draft position.
I agree with you on everything. Now, finally, let's hear about the quarterback.
All right, my quarterback 1 this season is Lamar Jackson. As I said earlier, the Ravens have like a 1-6 record when he's not there. I think he's the backbone, the collarbone, the arms, half the legs maybe, and the head of the Ravens offense. I think that he is the key there. When not Lamar was starting, it was a horrible predicament in Baltimore. Number 2, I have Josh Allen. He has 2 top quarterback finishes on his resume already, and I think that he's going to have another monster year. Stephon Diggs just keeping up his pace as good as he is. James Cook being added to that offense, and Gabe Davis having his breakout in the playoffs in the last few weeks leading up to the playoffs. Number 3, I have Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes always somehow manages to finish pretty well. Even with the loss of Tyreek Hill, I think he still will do well. And he has some rushing upside. He has a lot of upside for big plays, which is what I really like about him. Number 4, I have Kyler Murray. Even though the Cardinals had to put a clause in his contract to make him study film, they definitely do trust him because otherwise I don't see why they would pay him $230 million. But Kyler is he's a rushing quarterback. He can move the ball very well. He can move the chains. He has a lot of rushing upside, and he also has big play upside. And last but not least, I have Jalen Hurts. He's a lot of rushing upside. He's done it before. He's managed to have top quarterback seasons under his belt. There's been a lot of weeks where he's finished as the overall quarterback 1. And I feel like he's going to continue to do that with the addition of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, obviously improving after his rookie year, and they have good tight end. And then my sleeper for quarterbacks is Jameis Winston. The Saints now have a healthy Michael Thomas, which feels like that doesn't happen in like 3+ years. They drafted Chris Olave. They have, I believe, Jarvis Landry. and Kamara, I don't think will get suspended. We would have already heard something about the NFL about a suspension, and it's getting too close to the season for him to go announce it before that. I think that the Saints have a very complete roster. I think that they will do very well this year. I think that they'll have a good run, and I think that they're going to be passing a lot in the very high-powered pass offense, even if it's just a pass to win.
Yes. All right. What about the two-time MVP Aaron Rodgers? Who's he throwing to?
Anyways, thank you guys for sticking around with us the whole episode. Make sure to, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tune in for next week's episode. And this wrap. Awesome first episode. Let's go. See you next week.